Has given her Nobel Peace Prize to President Trump. The pair were pictured in the Oval Office with Donald Trump holding a framed Nobel medal. The plaque said that this is in recognition of the Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado says that she has given her Nobel Peace Prize to President Trump. The pair were pictured in the Oval Office with Donald Trump holding a framed Nobel medal. The plaque said that this is in recognition of President Trump's principled and decisive action to secure a free Venezuela and how his courage will never be forgotten by the Venezuelan people. Well, the Nobel Peace Center stipulated in just the last few hours that while the medal can change owners, the title of the Nobel Peace Prize laureate cannot. The decision is final and stands for all time. Well, in the days that followed the US intervention in Venezuela, Mr. Trump appeared to sideline Maria Corina Machado. He downplayed her support and instead supported the vice president, Delcy Rodriguez, now acting president, becoming the interim leader. Our North American editor, Sarah Smith, is in Washington.
Well, she has to try and stay on his good side because she has been completely overlooked so far by President Trump, and she wants to try to persuade him that Venezuela does need new elections, which she, of course, hopes that she would win. And that's why she got the Nobel Peace Prize in the first place, for her efforts to try and bring democracy to Venezuela. But we know all too well, don't we, that Donald Trump thinks he should have won that Peace Prize. So, maybe it's not a surprise that she came here in order to hand it to him in the hope that that might help bring democracy to Venezuela.
Ms. Machado, how was the meeting?
A joyous wave as she leaves the White House, but Maria Corina Machado is still a long way from achieving victory in Venezuela. She was greeted by supporters who want to see her in power, even if Donald Trump says she doesn't command enough respect to run the country. Ms. Machado wants free and fair elections. Donald Trump wants someone he can do business with.
Juro por Bolívar, juro por nuestros libertadores.
Someone like Delcy Rodriguez, who's been sworn in as the acting president of Venezuela. She was number 2 in the Maduro regime, but seems to have won over the US president, who says he likes working with her.
We just had a great conversation today, and she's a terrific person. I mean, she's somebody that we've worked with very well.
The White House press secretary praised Maria Corina Machado as a brave voice before explaining why the administration's doing business with Delcy Rodriguez.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. They have been extremely cooperative. They have thus far met all of the demands and requests of the United States and of the president. And I think you have all seen that play out. We obviously had a $500 million energy deal that was struck in large part because of the cooperation from Ms. Rodriguez.
America is already making money from Venezuela's oil, and Donald Trump cares more about that than he does about restoring democracy to the country. Venezuela's not ready for new elections, he says.
Thanks, everybody.
Meeting senior lawmakers in Congress, Ms. Machado was among friends who do believe she should be Venezuela's next president. Then she told reporters she gave her Nobel Peace Prize to Donald Trump.
I presented the President of the United States the medal of the Nobel Peace Prize.
Despite the gift, it may be some time before President Trump decides Venezuela needs a democratically elected leader. Sarah Smith, BBC News, Washington.
Well, keeping the focus on President Trump, he's threatened to invoke a centuries-old law to deploy the US military to stop protests in the opposition-run state of Minnesota. Unrest there is growing over the presence of thousands of masked and armed federal immigration officers, one of whom shot dead an American woman last week. Mr. Trump lambasted local Democratic leaders, who he described as corrupt, for failing to stop what he called professional agitators from committing.
And whoa. Yesterday you accepted Maria Machado's Nobel Prize medal. What do you intend to do with it, and why would you want someone else's Nobel Prize?
Well, she offered it to me. I thought it was very nice. She said, you've ended 8 wars, and nobody deserves this prize more than in history than you do. And I thought it was a very nice gesture. And by the way, I think she's a very fine woman, and we'll be talking again. Say it? Well, the Insurrection Act, which has been used by 48% of the presidents as of this moment, the Insurrection Act also, if you look at it, I believe it was Bush, the elder Bush, he used it, I think, 28 times. It's been used a lot. And if I needed it, I'd use it. I don't think there's any reason right now to use it. But if I needed it, I'd use it. It's very powerful.
Delcy Rodriguez and the residents of the Maduro regime, and not with Machado, who has the support of the Venezuelan people.
Well, if you ever remember a place called Iraq, where everybody was fired, every single person, the police, the generals, everybody was fired, and they ended up being ISIS. Instead of just getting down to business, they ended up being ISIS. So I remember that. But I'll tell you, I had a great meeting yesterday by a person who I have a lot of respect for, and she has respect, obviously, for me and our country, and she gave me her Nobel Prize. But I'll tell you what, I got to know her. I never met her before, and I was very, very impressed. She's this is a fine woman.
I presented the President of the United States the medal of the Nobel Peace Prize, and I told him this, listen to this. 200 years ago, General Lafayette gave Simón Bolívar a medal with George Washington's face on it. Bolívar since then kept that medal for the rest of his life.
We don't know yet what the president's reaction was to that gift. We do know he wanted the prize himself. We should note the Nobel Committee has made clear the Peace Prize cannot be shared or transferred after it is awarded by the Nobel Committee. The meeting comes as the White House says Trump stands by his assertion that Machado does not have the support necessary to lead Venezuela. Just yesterday, the president called Venezuela's acting president, Delcy Rodriguez, of course, Nicolas Maduro's former vice president, a terrific person following a phone call. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says the current Venezuelan government has been extremely cooperative.
Secretary Rubio and the administration have been in constant communication with Ms. Rodriguez and other members of the interim government in Venezuela. They have been extremely cooperative. They have thus far met all of the demands and requests of the United States and of the president.
In Caracas, Delcy Rodriguez delivered her State of the Nation address. She urged her country to wage a diplomatic battle with the U.S., saying, quote, "If I ever have to go to Washington as acting president, I will do so standing tall, walking, and not crawling." Kristen Holmes is live at the White House. Kristen, is it clear to you what the next steps are for Venezuela? If Trump is still saying Machado doesn't have the support and that he likes Delcy Rodriguez, seems like they're happy with the status quo for now?
Well, for now, certainly. I mean, we know one of the things that President Trump and the administration was trying to focus on was stability in the administration in Venezuela. That's part of the reason that they had kind of turned their focus to Rodriguez after the capture, or actually before the capture of Maduro, for this idea that, one, they could have her in place and then put the screws to her. We know that they've kept the Armada that is in the Caribbean with essentially weapons pointed at Venezuela just off the coast. We know that we've kept sanctions, or at least some of them, in place. These are all forms of negotiating tactics to put the screws to Rodriguez to get her to do what the United States wants. Now, you heard Caroline Leavitt in the briefing today. She would not give any sort of a timeline on elections or a shift to democracy in Venezuela. So it's really unclear what this looks like in terms of steps. All we really know right now is this step, or phase one, which is this kind of stability period where you see President Trump, the United States, trying to rebuild the oil infrastructure and continue to use basically the same regime. Maduro is gone, but Rodriguez is essentially a part of Maduro. She was part of his inner circle. She was his vice president, but to put an enormous amount of pressure on. And Rodriguez seems to be playing ball with the White House in a way that Maduro was not willing to. So right now, it does seem as though they are happy with the status quo.
It's quite a change, given most of the government remains from the Maduro regime. Kristen Holmes, thanks so much. Richard Haass is President Emeritus of the Council on Foreign Relations. He's also the author of the Substack newsletter, Home and Away. Richard, good to have you.
Good to be had.
So I first have to ask you this, given your long history in diplomacy. Is there any precedent or anything close to a winner of a prize, a Nobel Prize or similar, feeling pressure to give it to the U.S. president to curry favor?
I think that's a rhetorical question, Jim. I'm not familiar with anything like it. It was quite a gesture on her part. And I think it's her attempt to bring the president over, given the conversation you just had, to where he sees a meaningful role for the political opposition in Venezuela.
Is it clear to you that he sees a meaningful role? Because listening to Caroline Leavitt today from the White House podium, she repeated that Trump doesn't quite believe Machado has the support. He said that he likes Delcy Rodriguez. She's being extremely cooperative. They seem to be prioritizing stability of oil supplies getting out of there. And there's no timeline for elections. Is the status quo going to stick around for a while?
If you want to make a full-time income from home working part.
Venezuela's opposition leader Maria Corina Machado met with President Trump for the first time at the White House yesterday and gifted him her Nobel Prize.
And then she sat down exclusively with our Rachel Campos Duffy. And Rachel joins us now. Rachel, I know you've had a relationship with her for a long time. It's so great that she gave you this exclusive interview. And it's phenomenal because she just broke news by giving the Nobel Peace Prize to Donald Trump.
Yeah, well, this, but first of all, good morning to all of you. This was her very first interview since the capture of Nicolas Maduro.
Wow.
And as you know, the vice president of Nicolas Maduro's vice president, Delcy Rodriguez, has been working with the administration, and they said she's been good to work with. So this meeting that she had just prior to my interview with the president and with Marco Rubio was a very high-stakes meeting for her, and she met the moment. Watch.
Maria, you just left the White House. How did it go?
It went very well. I'm very grateful for the opportunity I had to speak with President Trump, something I've been looking forward for a very long time. It was a huge responsibility because I did it on behalf of the Venezuelan people that appreciate so much what he has done for not only the freedom of the Venezuelan people, but I would say the whole hemisphere.
What was your purpose when you went in there? Did you have a mission? Did you have something you wanted to accomplish when you were in this meeting, in this lunch with the president?
Yes, certainly. First of all, I wanted to share with President Trump my profound trust in the Venezuelan people. And I told him that, please trust the Venezuelan people. We are people that love the United States of America, that share values, that admire the strength of your institutions, that want to live with democracy and dignity and justice and freedom. We want to have our children coming back home and work together for the security of the whole hemisphere. And I wanted to convey this to him and for him to know how much support and hope there is today in Venezuela regarding what he's doing in our country.
In spite of the Nobel Prize Committee saying that you couldn't transfer your Nobel Prize to anyone, especially President Trump, you did today. Why did you do that?
Because he deserves it. And it was a very emotional moment. I decided to present the Nobel Peace Prize medal on behalf of the people of Venezuela. And I told President Trump where I found also inspiration to do that. And it happens that 200 years ago, General Lafayette gave Simón Bolívar, Venezuela's liberator, a medal bearing the face of George Washington. And it was in tribute to Bolívar's fight for freedom in the continent. And Simón Bolívar kept that medal with him until the rest of his days. So 200 years later in history, the people of Bolívar are presenting to the Washington's heir in retribution, in this case, a medal, that's the Nobel Peace Prize medal, for what he's doing to liberate Venezuela and for freedom in the Americas.
Maria, what's next for Venezuela?
Oh, freedom. Freedom. That's what's going to come for us. Not only that, but we are going to have a country that will be, I always say, the envy of the world.
Do you want to be the president of Venezuela?
I want to serve my country where I am more useful. I got a mandate, and I have that mandate very present every day. It has meant taking huge risks and paying very high costs, not only for me, but also for my family and our teams. But I do believe that, there's a mission, and we are going to turn Venezuela into that land of grace. And I believe I will be elected when the right time comes as president of Venezuela, the first woman president of Venezuela.
Rachel?
Yeah, look, she is an elegant woman, and the manner in which she presented that Nobel Peace Prize is as important as the medal itself. Here she was, Simón Bolívar, the liberator of Latin America, and then 200 years, had that medal with the face of George Washington that he carried with him everywhere. And here she was giving a different medal to the new liberator of the Americas. It was an emotional moment. The president was touched. It was amazing. And that's not the only gesture she gave him, guys. She also handed him a rosary. So everywhere that she would go when she was campaigning, and even after she won that election 2 years ago that was then taken away from her by Nicolas Maduro, everywhere she would go, Venezuelans would put rosaries over her head and present her with rosaries. And she has a collection of about 7,000 rosaries of all the people who gave them to her. And when there was one moment where she was kidnapped, during one of these campaign events. This is the kind of dangers that she was in. And when she left the country and escaped, last month, she took 7 rosaries with her. And those were the rosaries that were given to her on the day that she was kidnapped. And the reason she took them, when she was kidnapped, she thought she would never live again. The regime is brutal. But President Trump wrote a tweet that day and said, "Don't touch a hair on her head, or you're going to see the wrath of me." And they let her go. And she believes President Trump saved her life. A couple days ago, she met with the Pope, and one of the, she had those 7 rosaries. Those are one of the few items she took with her on that very dangerous escape that she took out of Venezuela and back to Europe. And she had those rosaries with her. She presented them to the Pope, who blessed them, and then she gave one of those rosaries to President Trump. So she really, I think, knocked it out of the park in this meeting in terms of really giving homage to the president for what he has done for Venezuela. I also asked her, we'll have more of this interview over the weekend, and Fox and Friends, you must stay tuned. There's a lot more on this. I asked her, what would you tell the oil executives who met with President Trump last week? And the other question I asked that I think was important is, I asked her what she would say to fair-minded, war-weary Americans who are very skeptical of foreign interventions and really want, the president to focus on domestic issues. What would you say to them? Why would this action be America first? She had a great answer for that, too. So you got to see.
No one in this city is safe.
Maybe I'm not bad. There's people after me.
We'll fight our way and I'll fight mine.
We enter a new world.
1,000 Blows, exclusively on Disney+.
Can't simply be transferred. It was Venezuelan opposition leader who gave President Trump the prize that he is reported to have coveted. But it does bring into a conversation, doesn't it, as regarding the Trumps. Is he good, bad, or ugly?
We've been told that the killing in Iran is stopping, and it's stopped, and it's stopping. And there's no plan for executions or an execution or executions. I'm sure if it happens, we'll all be very upset.
Well, undoubtedly good. Executions had stopped. But
if we don't go in, Russia's going to go in and China's going to go in. And there's not a thing that Denmark can do about it.
He wants to seize Greenland, and then there's...
You don't have the cards. You're buried there. Your people are dying. You're running low on soldiers. Listen, you're running low on soldiers. It would be a damn good thing. And then you tell us, I don't want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. I want to go, and I want this. You got to be more thankful.
The ugly and ungracious spat with President Zelensky. So is he good, bad, or ugly? Freddie Gray, editor of The Spectator magazine, editor of its US edition, joins me now. There are people now drawing breath in Iran who can give thanks to that directly to President Trump. But is it all good? Morning to you.
As regards the Nobel Peace Prize, I think Tom Lehrer had it right in 1973 when he said that satire died when Henry Kissinger was given the award after carpet bombing Cambodia. For Donald Trump, it is obviously farcical, his very vain obsession with the prize, but I think you could make a pretty good case that far more so than Barack Obama, who won it anyway, he does deserve it. I think his biggest achievement last year was obviously Gaza, where he managed to broker a peace deal, and that's now progressing, albeit with some problems. Yesterday he announced a rather ridiculous-sounding board of peace that will... We'll see how that gets on. But he is committed to peace. He said in New Year, he said, what I want for the world is peace. And he seems intent on achieving it, even if that makes him unpopular. And you played a clip of the Ukraine scene with Zelensky. And I think, he's had a lot of criticism about sort of cozying up to Russia, about ignoring Ukraine's concerns, and some of it's very justified. He is at least pushing for peace in Ukraine. And I think there are a lot of Western figures who seem perfectly content to let the war just go on and on and on, with Ukraine losing lots of people and slowly losing a terrible war of attrition. Whereas Trump is really trying to make moves to solve the conflict. And so, yes, I think we shouldn't get hung up about the bauble that is the Nobel Peace Prize. And I'm not sure Venezuela is necessarily a great move for peace. He has essentially taken out one terrible dictator and replaced him with potentially another. So we shall see. We shall see. But I think, yes, he's a pro-peace president. I just don't think we should get hung up about the Nobel Peace Prize.
But then there's Greenland, Freddie.
Well, Greenland is farcical. But I think there are strong strategic reasons, a lot of it to do, interestingly, with satellites and data as to why America needs Greenland. They have said this for a long time. Military chiefs in America have said this for a long time. And there may be some kind of accommodation. I don't think we can accuse him of being a warmonger on Greenland quite yet, although, of course, the noises he makes are ridiculous and cause a lot of aggravation and noise.
Lastly, the midterms on the horizon. What might that do to the way that he can exercise his powers and his policies?
Well, I think in Trump's circles, they're very concerned that he actually stops talking about the world and trying to solve various conflicts all over the place, because towards the end of last year, his popularity went down as his voters tended to think he should be focusing on what's going on inside America, not the world. And that's what he's got to do ahead of the midterms. He has had some better news on the economy recently, and that will be vital. But if he does not win the midterms, and if the Democrats win a majority, as Steve Bannon put it, we're all going to jail. And Steve Bannon's someone who went to jail when Trump and the Republicans are out of power, so he should know.
Freddie Gray, always enjoy speaking with you. Thank you. Deputy Editor of The Spectator magazine, editor of its US edition, 11 after 8. Listen to that, Zoe Gardner, who's member of the Stop Trump Coalition. There are people who are still alive in Iran because of Trump's threatened intervention. That's a positive, isn't it?
Well, I think reports from Iran would directly refute that. People are still being killed. And even, in so-called normal times in Iran, like last year in 2025, almost 1,000 people were executed by the regime there. So I think the idea that Trump has brought peace to Iran is slightly, just insulting.
He has halted the executions, though. So, or let's go.
It's insulting because when we talk about Iranians, we're talking about a people who have suffered under dictatorship and brutal repression for decades and decades. Trump tweeting some ridiculous opinion where it's not his place to come in and decide anything about the situation, and then deciding that actually the assurances of the Ayatollahs that it's all over now is sufficient. I mean, it's just frankly embarrassing and insulting to the brave Iranians who are actually standing up against brutality to pretend that Trump is anything to do with peace in that country.
Well, let's instead then go to Israel and the fact that many people there, particularly in Israel, believe that they had their hostages, or sadly the remains of their hostages, returned again because of Donald Trump's intervention. How do you respond to that?
I respond that Israel has been committing a genocide.
No. To the point about the return of hostages. Can we address that?
Well, the hostages being returned has not brought an end to the
President, I don't know whether you're... I'm obviously not... Right. Do you accept President Trump was involved in helping secure the return of the hostages? And if you do, that's surely a good thing.
I don't accept that was a good process. No, it's
not good to get the hostages back.
Hostages were returned. Yes, it is, but it hasn't brought an end to the immense suffering. I'm sorry, I'm allowed to make a separate point.
Just answer my question first. Let's deal with it
I am delighted that the hostages were returned. I do not think that Trump's intervention has been positive within that process in any way.
So President Trump wasn't involved
in getting... And I think that the continued failure of the...
I'm sorry, we'll do it my way. When it's your show... No, we'll do it my way, thank you. Will you accept, and then we'll discuss the other part, will you accept that those returns were because of President Trump's work? Just a yes or no?
No, I think that the returns could have been better achieved.
How?
Through a true peace process that would have involved not funding a genocide against the Palestinian people, which is what Donald Trump did.
I sense that you're one of those people who, even if he was to find a cure for cancer, it would still not be the work of Donald Trump.
Donald Trump has drastically cut cancer research funding throughout the world. So the day he finds a cure for cancer, Nick, I would be delighted for you to bring me on, and I'll say it's wrong.
Why is it that this man excites such opposition in your eyes?
No one in this city is safe. Baby, I'm not bad.
There's people after me.
You fight your way and I'll fight mine.
We enter a new world.
1,000 Blows, exclusively on Disney+. When you collect lab books, there's a whole world of prizes waiting for you. Maggie could choose more free...
Is it that this man excites such opposition in your eyes?
I think it's quite obvious that Donald Trump is bringing authoritarian violence to the streets of the United States, that he is a dangerous warmonger on the global stage, and that he is a representative of the very worst elements of the political situation that the world finds itself in. He is a danger to Ukrainians. He is a danger to, frankly, anybody who he decides gets on his nerves that day. And he's a danger to American citizens. He's a danger to the global world order. And I think that the British public can see that incredibly clearly. And it's, frankly, just a little bit jarring to have conversations about whether or not he's a peace bringer.
He's a very polarizing figure, to say the least.
Yep.
I really enjoyed that interview you did with the lady from the Stop the Trump Coalition.
Zoe. Yeah.
I don't think she would have given credit to anybody had they disagreed with her position from what I heard.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Which is a shame, and you are correct when you say that there are lots of positives, but a peacemaker he is not.
Right. Okay.
I don't necessarily think he is. Well, I think we need to look at Stephen Miller, the power behind the crown,
right,
for a lot of what is actually going on. I have family in the United States.
Oh, do you? That's interesting. Whereabouts?
They're right on the Canadian border, actually,
Right.
way up in the north.
Okay.
They're not Minnesota. It's northern New York State. They're in a very Republican area. They are not Republicans; they're Democrats, and there's an awful lot of reporting that goes on in the United States that discusses Donald Trump and the division that he's sowed within the country. It is very, very polarizing. However, on Greenland, interestingly, one of the takes that they had, and there's a number of commentators that have said the same thing, saying that he's going to go into Greenland actually might spell the start of the end of his presidency.
Why so?
Because an awful lot of Republican lawmakers are so against the idea of Greenland, and a lot of the US military are so against the idea of the US going to Greenland, that it might be the straw that breaks the camel's back in terms of them standing up to what Trump is doing to the Republican Party.
Well, if the Republicans have a bad midterms, of course, he's out of political juice. He's out of political power, isn't he?
He is, and I think it's quite that you think there might still be midterms.
You don't?
So I'm not convinced there will be.
Well, your family is saying they think he'll scrap them.
It's honestly, it's up in the air, which is an awful thing to say, really, because
Well, they're scrapping elections in this country.
Never have said that.
Yep.
No one in this city is safe.
Baby, I bounce back. There's people after me.
We'll fight our way and we fight, man.
We enter a new world.
1,000 Blows, exclusively on Disney+.
Have you sent any messages of support to the mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Frey?
Yeah, so we've got a group of mayors in the UK, and a few of us got together and sent him a message just over a week ago. I think his leadership in terms of speaking up for particularly minorities in his city is incredibly impressive, and also speaking up for the values that are so important. And just to remind those of your listeners who don't understand the concerns many Americans have is, if you're a person of colour, if you're somebody who wasn't born in America, even if you were born in America, the colour of your skin is different to President Trump's. You're nervous about this tap on your shoulder, or worse, as we saw in Minneapolis. And this anxiety is spreading across many cities in America. I've spoken to many leaders in America. And one of the reasons we sent solidarity to the mayor was because I think he's shown really good leadership speaking to those values and speaking for those people who are a bit nervous and anxious to put their head above the parapet.
I mean, you would be, wouldn't you, at the moment? Very nervous already.
Yeah, Alice, there are parallels here. I remember in 2012 or so when Theresa May was Home Secretary and a chap called Nick Timothy was her advisor. There were these vans saying, "Go home," going around diverse communities in London. And that sent a shiver amongst many ethnic minority communities, because this is our home. And the impression it gives is we are the other and we don't belong. And just the way ICE are behaving, the aggressiveness, the intimidation, we saw the loss of life most recently, is really scary. And the idea that British politicians would want to emulate that and bring a sort of British ICE to the UK should worry us all.
Let's hit the phones.
The first caller is from Wandsworth, a place I know very well. Mohammed, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good to speak to you.
Thank you for having me in. My question to Mr. Sadiq Khan. Hello, Sadiq Khan.
Hiya.
Just recently, the GD Vance have said that the UK is going to become an Islamic nuclear country since the Labour government came into the power. And similar kind of the remarks has been given by the Donald Trump about you and called you a terrible mayor, this kind of the words. He said, I do not want to mention these words. My question is that why the US administration interfering into UK domestic politics? UK knows well how to run the country, and these kind of the remarks to give that the London has a mayor like this one, does this not mean the disrespect of the London voters? Because the Sadiq Khan has been elected through a democratic process. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Why does he have such a problem with you? Why does the whole administration have such a problem with you personally?
Well, Mohammed, thanks for your call. Look, my analysis is this. Firstly, I'm not sure why they're obsessed with me, why I'm living rent-free inside their minds. I can hazard a guess, and my guess is this. There is a view some people have, which is there is a clash of civilizations. It's not possible to be a Westerner and a Muslim. It's not possible to be a Westerner and an ethnic minority. It's not possible to be a proud Muslim and to be proudly British and a proud Londoner. But also when you look at London, We are progressive, we are liberal, we are diverse, and we are incredibly successful on a number of metrics: tourism, culture, foreign direct investment, music, sports, homicide rates. We are the world's finest city, the world's greatest city in terms of reducing serious crime and so forth. And we're the antithesis to everything they believe in. So you're a nativist. If you believe in monoculturalism, we are proof that that's nonsense, and that's one of the reasons I suspect they attack London and they attack all we stand for. And by the way, we see parallels with what's happened in New York, an incredibly diverse city, in my view, the second greatest city in the world. I saw the campaign against the Democratic candidate, Zohran Mamdani, and it troubles me because I'm somebody who's trying to bring people together, trying to bring communities together, sought to be a mayor for all Londoners, and I'll carry on doing that.
Is it working?
Buy stocks and ETFs with zero commission. Get the Trading 212 app now.
Do you want to study psychology and learn how it shapes people and workplaces?
Even by local standards, events are moving here at an unprecedented clip. So before we get into this week's shenanigans, I ran out of time last week to mention that the Trump administration had withdrawn America from 66 separate international organizations. And not just small, inconsequential ones. Outfits like the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the Global Counterterrorism Forum, and the Partnership for Atlantic Cooperation. All of them deemed by the White House to be wasteful, woke, and ineffective. Of course, that last one, the Partnership for Atlantic Cooperation, should probably have seen the writing on the wall.
We're not going to have Russia or China occupy Greenland, and that's what they're going to do if we don't. So we're going to be doing something with Greenland, either the nice way or the more difficult way.
The president speaking last Friday afternoon, and as he's done all this week, stoking the notion that he is prepared to use force to seize Greenland unless the Danes either agree to sell it or just to hand it over. Denmark insists he is simply lying every time he makes these claims.
If you take a look outside of Greenland right now, there are Russian destroyers, there are Chinese destroyers and bigger. There are Russian submarines all over the place. And we're not going to have Russia or China as a neighbor.
The Danish authorities reiterated this week that it is flatly untrue to claim that the waters off Greenland are littered with Russian and Chinese military vessels. Denmark's foreign minister said they haven't seen any Chinese presence there in a decade. But when Lars Løkke Rasmussen exited from a tense and difficult hour-long conversation at the White House with Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, he said both Denmark and Greenland fear that Trump is now serious about sending his own gunboats in.
We didn't manage to change the American position. It's clear that the president has this wish of conquering over Greenland. We made it very, very clear that this is not in the interest of the kingdom.
Flanking him and also fearing the possibility of being conquered by the Americans, Greenland's Foreign Minister Vivian Motzfeldt.
I think it's very important to say it again that how important it is from our side to strengthen our cooperation with the United States, but that doesn't mean that we want to be owned by the United States.
Later, in an interview with Greenlandic television, she came close to breaking down as the emotion of Trump's ludicrous and entirely unnecessary threats to her homeland engulfed her. When Trump wasn't saber-rattling in Greenland's direction, he was indicating that he was ready to ride to the rescue of protesters in Iran, with plans to launch airstrikes targeting the country's brutal regime. Help is on the way, he wrote on social media.
We're watching the situation very carefully. I've made the statement very strongly that if they start killing people like they have in the past, we will get involved. We'll be hitting them very hard where it hurts.
But that turns out to have been bluster. On Wednesday, he blinked.
We've been told that the killing in Iran is stopping. It's stopped. It's stopping. And there's no plan for executions or an execution or execution. So I've been told that on good authority. We'll find out about it.
In fact, what he had been told on good authority by his allies Qatar and Oman was that any US military intervention would be catastrophic for the region. While the White House says military options remain on the table, so far the only help Iranian protesters have seen has come in the form of some rather imprecise new US sanctions announced on Thursday. One week he's telling everyone he won't be constrained by international law, he'll do whatever he wants, guided only by his personal morality. The next week he's bottling it over Iran. How to make sense of it all, especially given the rhetoric of Trump's Rasputin, Deputy White House Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, on CNN a week ago, explaining why the United States is now running Venezuela.
Jake, we live in a world in which you can talk all you want about international niceties and everything else, but we live in a world, in the real world, Jake, that is governed by strength, that is governed by force, that is governed by power. These are the iron laws of the world.
But are you
existed
saying
since
that
the beginning of time? By definition, we are in charge.
Except that turns out not to be exactly true, certainly as far as Venezuela is concerned. Last Friday, the president summoned American oil companies to the White House for an event at which he planned to divvy up the spoils of his takeover of the country. It did not go according to plan.
We have a very long history in Venezuela. In fact, we first got into Venezuela back in 1940s.
That is Darren Woods, the CEO of ExxonMobil, saying the company has no plans to get back into Venezuela anytime soon.
We've had our assets seized there twice, and so you can imagine to re-enter a third time would require some pretty significant changes from what we've historically seen here and what is currently the state. If we look at the legal and commercial constructs and frameworks in place today in Venezuela, today it's uninvestable.
Uninvestable, you say? That is very much not the message the president wanted to hear about his new plaything.
No, I didn't like Exxon's response. We have so many that want it. I'd probably be inclined to keep Exxon out. I didn't like their response. They're playing too cute.
Maya used to have lots of pension.
Never pay for Wi-Fi again. InstaBridge is a free app with 20 million Wi-Fi passwords.
I think it's really important because I think it's a really strong statement that NATO is now finally taking seriously the defence of Greenland. I mean, that's what lies behind at least part of what President Trump has been talking about.